Let's look at function notation. So this is the last concept in this unit. So I folded my paper, so I have it like this. Think of a function as a machine. A number goes into a machine, which is called your input. The machine performs the operations requested, and then a number result comes out of the machine, which is your output. In function notation, the expression following f parentheses x describes the operations the function machine will perform. Try one below. So a lot of times in algebra, you're going to see it written like this. Instead of it saying y equals 2x, it might say f of x equals 2x. So this f parentheses x is read as f of x. F is the name of the function. So a function could be named g of x, k of x, h of x, b of x. There could be just different kinds of function names, but what we'll usually see is f of x. We'll also see g of x. So the letter in front is like the name of the function. This tells you that x is the input. So x is what's going to be input right here for x. 2x tells you what the function does. This function multiplies the input values by 2. So you're going to plug in numbers and you're going to come out with other numbers. G of 2, right here. We're going to look at a g function. So g of 2 means I'm going to substitute in 2 into the rule. So for function notation, all we're doing is we're going to plug in 2 for x. I'm going to teach you 2 different ways of doing it, and then you decide which way is better for you. So one way is substitution. That means every time you see an x, you're going to plug in a number. The other way is using our calculator, putting in y equals and looking at the table. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we have g of x is 3x minus 1. So when we find g of 2, we're going to plug in 2 every time we see an x. So instead of writing g of x, I'm going to put g of 2. And every time I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 2. So it's going to be 3 times 2 minus 1. Anytime you substitute in a number, you're putting it in parentheses. So we can solve this really without the calculator. So g of 2 is going to be 3 times 2 is 6 and minus 1. We're going to show every step on just this one problem. So g of 2 is 6 minus 1, which is 5. So for function notation, remember this was g of x. So that means the 2 is x. The 5 is a y, or we could say g of x. So anytime you have f of x or g of x, that also means y. You can replace those with each other. X is just x, so you're substituting it in. So if we had an input-output table, our input is x, which is also called your domain, and our output is usually y, right? But we could also write it as g of x. So what this means is there's a number that's going in for x and a number that's coming out for y, or g of x. So when we plugged in 2 for x, the output was 5. So let's finish this function machine. 2 goes in, perform the operation by plugging it in, and what comes out? The 5 on this one. So 5 would be our solution. We plugged in a number, right? We put in 2 right here. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. That's what comes out. It's a machine, kind of like a vending machine. Think about it as a vending machine. You put your money in. You type in a code, let's say B6 for that Snickers. What comes out is a Snickers. So what did we put in? B6. What came out? Snickers. So for a function machine, which isn't near as fun as a vending machine, we plugged in a 2. What came out? A 5. So we're doing substitution, which can also be written as an input-output table. The reason I wrote this here is to show you how it relates to tables, like X table, Y table, the T-chart, because we're going to use the calculator on a lot of these. All right, so let's look at some examples on the next page. Evaluate the functions. So it says let f of x equals x squared plus 3 and g of x equals 3x minus 1. So we're plugging in a number and we're coming out with another number. So on this one, f of 3. What do you notice about all of these right here? They're all f, and they all have a different number inside their parentheses. Yep. So this is going to go with all of these. They're all named with the f function. So we need to substitute in values for x. So this means everywhere I see an x, I'm going to sub in a number. So instead of writing x for the first one, I'm going to write a 3. So I'm going to rewrite this equation, but instead of writing x, I'm going to plug in the 3. So it's going to be 3 squared plus 3. And I put it in parentheses whenever I'm substituting numbers in. So we can do this in our head. We can do it by writing it out. We can use our calculator. What is 3 squared? 9. Then plus 3. What's that going to give us? 12. So plug in a 3, you get out a 12. Plug in 3, come out with 12, because it performs the operation of x squared plus 3. We could have done it in parentheses here by plugging it in. Parentheses 3 squared plus 3. Push enter, we get 12. So you don't have to work it out by hand. You can use your calculator. All right, so then the next one, we're going to plug in a -2. So it's going to be -2 squared plus 3. Because remember, it's x. X is what we're substituting in a number for. So parentheses, -2 squared plus 3. Use your calculator. Make sure you know how to plug this in the calculator. When you do negative, you're using this button. When you're doing minus and it's an operation, you're using the gray buttons. If you need a calculator paper that shows the calculator buttons better, you can have one. Does anybody need a calculator button paper? Because their buttons are all faded out. And I need one right there. I think I had y'all put it in the back of your journal. Okay, so it comes out as 7. So this equals 7. Did you know if you put it in without the parentheses, it'll give you a different answer?
Yep.
Yeah. So look at mine. So why does it do that? Do you know why? It's because that negative is outside the parentheses. You got to put it in parentheses. Because if I do -2 squared, that gives me a -4. But if I put in a -2 and then I square it, it gives me a +4. Because what your calculator does is the order of operations. Whatever is inside the parentheses is squared. So like -2 times -2, which is a +4. But if you don't have the parentheses around it, it's just 2 times 2, which is 4. And then the negative is just out front. All right, so let's do the next one. -3 squared plus 3. So if you want to use your highlighter and show what number you're plugging in, you can. Zero squared is going to give us 0, right? Plus 3? Yep, should equal 3. But if you got to put it in the calculator, doesn't bother me at all. Next one's 39. Okay, so this is using the substitution method. So what we did right now was substitution. We plugged in a number for x. So I'm going to show you another way, which is using the table of values. Because remember how on the front we did an input-output table based on what we got? We can actually have our calculator give us an input and output table. So do y'all know how to get an input-output table using your calculator? It's been a while, maybe. We're going to go to y equals. So write down the calculator steps for me. Yes. So our calculator steps, which you'll be able to use this if you want. 2 different ways of doing it. I think the calculator's pretty simple, but substitution's easy too. So let's see, put in equation into y equals. Do you know where the y equals button is? Top left, right here. So go to y equals, and you'll see this. Do you know how to get out from this? Let's say I made a mistake, I push a button. Second mode. So to go back to home screen, don't have to do that. Just hit second mode, which is quit. Second mode to get out from there. So if I'm in y equals, second, here's the second button, the blue button. Mode is right next to it. Go back to home screen by pushing second mode. So what equation are we going to put into y equals here? X squared plus 3. So go in to y equals, put in x squared plus 3. Okay, so we have this, right? So then how do we go to a table of values? Mm-hmm. You can use this button right here, or you can do the arrow up and a 2. And then you've got to arrow over to get out from it. So I could have done X and then did that and put in a 2, arrow over plus 3. I'm going to push clear on that one because I don't need that one. All right, I want you to show your neighbor that you've put this in. Okay, y'all help each other if you don't know how to put that in the calculator. Help him out. Show him. Let him do it. Let him do it. Got to put in X first. Do you know where the X variable is? Right beside alpha. Yep. All right. So once you have that in, then look at the table. Look at your calculator for the table, the word that says table. Look at the table. Look at your calculator and see how you could get to the table. Second, look at these top. It should be in blue. Huh? You just click second table. Second graph is what it actually is. Second graph, which is table. So everybody go. See if you can see the table now. Yep. Okay, show somebody beside you that you've gotten to the table.
Bro, did you get it right? Hey, you get it right? You got it right? No, it's you got it? Hey, you get it right?
All right. So what this does is this is our input-output table. So if I plug in a 0, I should get a 3. Plug in a 1, I get a 4, a 2, a 7, a 3, a 12, and so on. So what this does is it helps us with this. What is let's see. Smallest one is -3. So let's go up to -3. What did -3 come out with? 12. So let's write that on our input output table. -3, 12.
How you get all the, yeah, how do you get different numbers?
You have to go
Go up, scroll up,
Oh.
or go down. Yep. Okay, and then what's our next x value? X value. -2. What does -2 come out with? 7. What's our next number? No. Well, we don't need that one. Of the ones that we were asked for. 0. What does 0 come out with? Are these matching up with what we wrote in here? Yeah, it is. It is. 3 is next. What should 3 come out with? No, 3 should be 12. And then what about 6? 39. Okay, so what this is instead of just doing our substitution, we could have gone straight to the table. So on this next one, we're going to go straight to the table. So here's our function. So we're going to put this into y equals. So go back to y equals, clear out what's in there. You have to put an x into y equals. If you don't put an x into y equals, it's not going to give you what you are needing. It's not going to do the input-output thing. 3x minus 1. Go ahead and create a table of values now. And fill in the table of values according to the numbers that were asked for. List all the x's in order from least to greatest.
I'll help him out. You gotta run yourself.
Y equals. And then put this in 3x minus 1. Second, which is your table. So you're looking at these are your x side. So list them in order. List your x on the x side of your table.
That's what I understand.
These are your x's.
How do you run
Just like these, 3 and 2 and 3 0. Then 3 and 2 0. Put them in order from list.
Are you a freshman?
Go back to y equals. Write that out. Where's your little paper that
You're a
shows
freshman?
stuff later?
But the 2026. I'm 24. Yeah.
Oh. That's fine. How do you want me to
So,
think we're out.
right, this could be a CPA.
Okay, so y'all listen. You should have put this into y equals. Hopefully you're there at that point. Now, these are your x's. 3, 0, -5, -1, and -4. Those are the x values. that you want to test for the input. Plug in and see what you come out with. So let's list these in order from least to greatest on the table.
I gotta give 10.
Okay.
Never mind.
So we have those. So when we go to the table, we're only looking for these 5 points. We're not looking at anything else. So once you have this into y equals, then you push second graph. And you can go up and down on the x numbers. So -5, -16, -4, -1, 0, and 3. So I filled out a table. Now I need to write my answers here. So g of 3. That means when x is 3, what is y? 8. So instead of doing substitution like I did over here and I had to show all this work, I'm just doing a table of values. Okay, g of 3. It's -1. G of -5. -16. G of -1. And g of -4. Okay. So on that one, we purely use the calculator. But we know that all the calculator is doing is subbing in different numbers for x and coming out with g of x, or g of whatever that number is. Okay, do you have any questions on it? Is it hard or easy? So the more you practice with your calculator, the better you'll get. But we've got to learn those calculator skills, so it'll make that end of course a lot easier. All right, let's go to the next problem. It says, find the range of the function given the domain. So if they've given us a domain, what values did they give us? -1, 0, and 1. For what values? X, because it's domain. So what are they wanting us to find? The y values that match. So can we just use a table? Go ahead and do it. You're going to put this into y equals. And remember, if you want to get out of somewhere, you always hit second mode. Hey, make sure that, see how this is a number in front? It's not an operation. It's not subtract negative. It's not subtract 5x. It's -5x. So see how that one looks a lot shorter than that one? So you're going to use this for negative. -5x minus 3. So -5x minus 3. So I want you to show your neighbor that you typed it in right. If you need help, your neighbor can help you, but you're not going to give it to them. All right, now fill in the table. What values are you looking at for x?
-1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so fill in the y values. Okay, so fill in the chart. The x and y.
It's 2 and oh, we have to put them in order. I forgot about the.
So you're doing substitution. You don't want it to.
No, I already got it.
Oh, okay, you're doing the other. All right, so it's -1, 2, 0, and 1. Good. Okay, so what do I put in for range? Got to do them in order. Put them in order. Yeah. Because you want them in order from least to greatest. On here, they're with their matches. All right, do the next one. Do g of x.
Yeah, you go. You go to the number where it says you right there. You see the domain?
So then whenever you look, x is -4, y is 14. -2 is 2. 5, 23. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to put them here, least to greatest. Yeah. When you list them as your domain or range, yes. I mean, I'm not going to count it wrong, but that's how it's just going to be listed. All right, now look, we have 3 problems. All different functions, all different numbers you're plugging in. You can do substitution or you can do the table. I think the table's easier. Just do the table. Say what? Sure. Yep. Okay, so make sure to finish these 3 problems.